Can Silkie chickens be used as a homestead laying flock? In our opinion, the answer is yes. Everything you're seeing here on this table was produced by our Silkies in, wait for it, only the month of October. That's right, we tracked it. 451 eggs in the month of October alone.
So when people think of getting chickens for the purpose of eggs, primarily for their own use at home, Silkies are definitely not one of the breeds that comes to mind. In fact, most books and resources you will read will tell you that Silkies are a horrible breed to keep for eggs, and they don't really necessarily always explain why. So before we get into this, I do want to temper everybody's expectations here, because if you're watching this video and you're trying to get the most number of eggs you can get out of a chicken, or you're trying to go into a big egg production business, those kind of scenarios, this is probably not the video for you, and I will say it, Silkies are probably not going to be the best bird for you. But what we're really talking about is a alternative to the classic North American dual-purpose flock, and that's where we really think the Silkies shine, and we're going to go through it, and we're going to basically prove it, in our opinion, they can actually be a fairly productive bird on a small scale to help you feed your family. But in this video, we are actually going to go through what we think is the opposite to that sort of common everyday statement that Silkies are terrible egg layers, because we've gone through, as Stephanie said, we've got the numbers, and we're going to take you through what we get kind of on an average fall day, and this is without lighting, from our Silkie flock, and also run through how many Silkies we actually have.
So as we go around harvesting our eggs this day in October, which, you know, you'd almost think we'd be getting less eggs, this group here produced us 7 eggs. We're going to kind of collect as we go and keep the numbers rolling, but we have 8 egg-laying hens in this group, or 8 that are at least of age that we would assume they are laying eggs. So that's 7 out of 8 laying, not too bad. That doesn't mean that we don't have more birds than we need, because this is a group of 18 birds. But let's move on to the next group and see what we get from them.
So while we're out collecting some eggs this morning, I did want to take the time to sort of say, just like any other type of chicken, you're going to get a range of sizes. So yes, Silkie eggs are small, and some are smaller than others. Basically, there's nothing weird about that. That's exactly the same as any other breed of chicken. Just you're starting with something a little bit smaller, so when they're little, they're kind of cute. So there's a little bit of a digression here. We do have a lot of Silkies, and we're going to kind of give you the number of what we actually have kind of as of today. But the reason we have that is because we still use the clan mating system. I'm going to link a video at the end of this that goes back to how that clan mating system worked. When we used to have larger birds, we used the exact same system, and we've set the same thing up here. So this particular group, as Stephanie mentioned, we have 18 birds. Not all of those are of laying eggs. Only 8 of those are old enough to lay eggs. We have 4 roosters. 3 of those are actually young, so they're not staying. And we have 6 chicks of varying ages between pretty young and almost laying age, but not quite. And that's definitely one of the nice things about Silkies is they're very communal. So you can have that gradation of ages, and typically everybody gets along up until they actually get to maturity and the roosters start sparring a bit. So one thing when it comes to egg production in Silkies is, like this little hen here, you are always going to have some that want to go broody. And if you're strictly looking at it from an egg production perspective, that's really a negative. But when we get into the more dynamics of Silkies as a homestead bird, having some of those broody birds is not necessarily a bad thing. I'm going to put her down because I think she wants to go. So we're going to talk a little bit more about this in an upcoming video, but really that notion of broodiness in Silkies, unlike sort of conventional commercial birds, my opinion is you're not really going to break it. There's not really a lot of point to trying to break it. You typically don't have the whole flock do it at one time, as we're going to show as we continue to collect eggs. We've got a lot of eggs right now, and we still have birds that are trying to go broody. So it's just something to roll with, and there's definitely benefits to it.
So from this group here, we got 5 eggs today. Now, there are 6 laying age hens in here, and then we have quite a mixture, as you can see, of younger birds. We have, I think it's 7 or 8 in this group that are under that 4-month mark. Very, very unlikely to be producing, but come Christmas time, I'm pretty sure we'll see an influx again. And as always, there's a few extra roosters in this group. We've got 3, so that brings this group to a total size of 16. So that brings us to a grand total of 34 birds so far. So this is our 3rd group of Silkie chickens here, and I will say this is probably our worst laying group. Now saying that, as we open the gates, they scattered to the wind, so there could be spots that they're laying out in the woods here and we don't even know about it. But we ended up with only 3 eggs out of 10 laying hens. We still have 17 birds in this group. We've got roosters and chicks, as you can see, all mixed in here, but 10 of these birds would be of laying age. Now saying that, 4 are our original Silkies. So they are pushing it now, getting up to that 4-year mark, which is where you really start to see lower production. But those birds still have great value to the flock with what they bring in experience, knowledge, teaching, and that sitting ability.
So the one thing I will say about this, 3 eggs for this number of birds seems really low, but like a lot of other sort of dual purpose breeds, they don't lay every day like something like a Leghorn does. And this group varies quite a bit. Some days we get 7 or 8 eggs, and some days we get 3. So that kind of variation just comes with the territory of having birds that aren't dedicated bred for high egg production. All right, so we are on to our last clan. Now this clan is actually one of our bigger groups. We've got 2 roosters. One of them's young, one of them's old. We have 7 fairly young chicks that are mixed in here. And then we've actually got 12 hens. Now, of those 12 hens, it pretty much works out 6 of them are older birds, and the other 6 are right around the age where some of them are starting to lay, but they're not laying regularly yet. Like, we're talking right on the cusp of that. So, today we got 5 eggs. That's actually not that bad. So this is the group that we've really been tracking over the last month and a half to look at sort of statistics and see, based on the number of birds that are laying, how many eggs are we getting. And in typical chicken fashion, we've got a few spots that we check for eggs. So adding these 4 from the group we just talked about that we got the 5, that actually brings us up to 9. So when you look at it that way, that's pretty good. You can tell these are probably coming from younger birds because they're a little bit smaller than the others. So now you've seen basically how many birds we have. And while our overall flock size is pretty big because we have a lot of babies, we have roosters that are going to make it to the freezer, etc., which is another discussion for another day, we only actually have 36 laying hens. And on the 27th of October, when we filmed the outdoor bit of this video, we got 24 eggs. When you think about the fact that that was fall, they're not lit, and they're Silkies, that's actually pretty good. But we're going to go into some more of everybody's favorite topic, the numbers here, and sort of break some things down even further.
Of course, I'm going to give you the most impressive number first, and then put in all the caveats, of course. So, how many eggs did we produce from January till November 1st with our Silkie flock? It's a big number, guys. Got to check my cheat sheet because I don't want to mess it up. Dramatic pause. 2,462 eggs. Now, that equals out to 137 of these 18 packers, which we basically equate to a dozen of regular sized eggs because I use 3 instead of 2. Anyways, that's a whole nother video. Most of you are probably going, yeah, but that's with 36 hens. I don't want to have 36 hens. So we did do a separate evaluation, I guess you could call it, of just one of our breeding flocks or breeding groups. And I'm going to give you the information on that because I think it's a little bit more what somebody would be thinking in a small, homestead kind of flock. You know, Chris and I, we're a little excessive and not everybody wants to do it this way. So we want to make sure we give you the numbers that you want to hear. Without any further ado, I'm going to go through this all and we're just going to splice a whole bunch of wonderful Silkie footage over while I talk so you don't have to stare at me and all this boringness. That also means I can read my cheat sheet. So one of our breeding clans, the white one that we talked about last, was 12 hens. Now those hens were varying age. So of course in the month and a half that we recorded their information, there was differences in the number of hens that were actually laying from 6 hens originally, probably getting closer to the 10 or 12 on those last couple days, which is where we saw some big numbers. But those 6 hens on average produced 3.5 eggs every day. I know you can't get a half an egg, but you get the idea. But if you tracked just the last 2 weeks when we started getting a few more hens laying, we were seeing 6 eggs a day out of those 12 hens. So really, you're sitting at a 50 to 60% lay rate in late October, which I think is pretty fantastic. So one thing we did is we tracked every month in the calendar. 186 for January, 191, 304 in March, 243, and you can see they really don't have a huge drop off no matter what month they're in, whether they're sitting. Here we ended up in August, which we actually went away on holiday. That's why you see 129, but then right back up to that 232, and then that whopping 451 for October. And just for giggles, I'm going to give you some more stats because everybody knows Hickorycroft Farm loves to track stuff. I also tracked every egg that we used in the kitchen from January 1st to November 1st. We had the chickens producing 2,462 eggs. We used or consumed in those 10 months 1,327. I know there's quite the discrepancy in surplus there, isn't there? Now, saying that, we did give away some. We gave friends, family, that sort of thing. We also sold some because everybody does that when you've got a few surplus. No, it doesn't pay the bills, but you've got extra, so why not? So all in all, between spoils, what was given away, that sort of thing, our surplus went down. And then I went, well, where was it? Well, we went and we counted. And it turns out we still have 606 eggs. So all in all, we're not doing too badly in the egg department.
Can you actually make Silkies into a productive bird on a homestead scale? From an egg perspective, I would say absolutely you can. But the one thing I'm also going to say here too, as we close this out, is there's a lot of other factors. And you've seen the number of birds that we actually have versus the number of laying hens we have, the number of eggs we produce. There's other factors like we do consume them, so there's a meat factor. They're just easier, and they are a little cheaper than the big birds to keep. So that's all things that we are going to touch on in the near future, but hopefully we've answered the question of whether Silkies are a good egg-producing breed.